Okay, y'all.
Just gonna talk into this microphone. This microphone is connected this time, so okay. So I want to tell you about my dream. Okay, so at this point, I am in the mall, and I thought this is a good time to talk about my dream because thought about this dream this morning, and I thought, okay, well, this is a good time to talk about it. Actually, go to need some sleep. Hold on a second. Just some glass. Okay, so if I didn't do it tonight, then I would have to get up and do it tomorrow because I got to talk about this dream. I had this dream. Um, I had this dream, and in the dream, um, I was somewhere. I don't even know where I was in the dream at first, but I was approached by this guy. Okay, so when this guy approached me, he asked me if I wanted to go somewhere, but I didn't tell him I wanted to go there. And then he suddenly transported me to that place. So after he transported me to that place, um, after transporting me to that place, he says, I'm in the mall right now. Um, all I saw when I was coming out of the train station was a fashion center or something like that. But he just took me there. So when he took me to the place, it was filled with women. The whole place was filled with women, and he was the only man in the entire place. And he was a man that looked like a man, but he still had like some feminine qualities, you know? So he didn't look too effeminate, but he still was kind of effeminate. So you could tell he had some feminine qualities on him. But the women loved him. I mean, it was filled with women. It was different rooms and different um, just different places in there to go into, different rooms to go into. All the women in there were like loved on this man. They thought he was the greatest thing ever. They just seemed like they really loved him. They seemed like they really wanted to be, with him and around him. And he just acted like he didn't care about none of those women. You know what I mean? But he was just really like, like to those women, that guy, like they really like they really wanted him. So at some point during the dream, and I started noticing the women. I started looking around at the women and how they were dressed, and some of them were dressed in some dresses that were kind of like you can call them like maybe witchcraft styles. Some of them were a little bit bohemian, but more like they were different. Like the women were different time states. Like some of the women were dressed maybe like say the 1800s. Some of the women were maybe dressed like the 90s. Some of the women were dressed in like different states of time of dress. Um, is how the women were dressed, and all of them liked the man. All of them. I was the only one who was like not bothered by him, and wasn't really liking on him like that. But I did notice that he wasn't really liking on any of the women. So, at some point during the dream, I found out that was the devil. And so when I found out that was the devil, I was like, oh, it didn't like, I knew I wouldn't be killed in the place, and I knew that I wasn't in danger, but I knew he was the devil. And so, but although I knew he was the devil, it made me pay more attention to the women. So I started looking around at the women, and I was like, just noticing everything about them, the way they demeanor, the way they would dress, the way they were partying, the way they were so happy to be there, and that kind of thing. And then I was made aware that I was the only woman who was there not by my consent. Every other woman had chosen to be there. I was the only woman who had come there, and it was not by my consent. So at some point, um, it was time to leave. It was time to leave the place. And when it was time to leave, we all went down this path. Okay, there was a path to the place. And when we were going down this path, we were going like I was made aware that I was going out of the place down that path the same way all those women came in. And although I was going up that path the same way those women came in, I was made aware. I said to myself, and I was made aware that I would never go to that. First of all, I was like, this is the path that they was coming to this place to, because I was aware somehow of the place, and I was aware that there was a path to the place, but I had never found it. And so when we had got to that path to go home, to leave the place, I was thinking about that, like I never found this path, but I knew this path existed, and I was like, something made me aware that when I went the opposite way that they came in on that path, that I was leaving that place, the path, the opposite way they came in, and that I would never go that path. I was made aware, and I understood it, and I said it. I was like, I would never walk down this path again, to this place. And so, well, I would never take this path to this place, is what I said to myself. Because, like they came down the path to the place, to the devil. I had not come down that path. I had been forced, he had put me there without my consent. And so, therefore, when I left the path and I left the place, that's what I was being made aware of. First of all, that I was going the opposite way to leave the place down the path that every other woman there had come to the place willingly. And two, that when I left that path, I would not ever go up to that path to ever go to that place. So then when we left the place, I was made aware in a dream that a while later, I was again approached by that man, approached by the devil. And when the devil approached me, he asked me again, did I want to go to that place? And I said no. But this time, I was like, no. And I like somehow, I don't know, like turned away, but he went away. And he didn't approach me again. You see what I'm saying? That was my dream. I had a dream that I was in a place with the devil and a bunch of women. And women, it was funny because the women were, it wasn't funny, it was odd. The women loved him. Those women who had went down that path and went to the devil, to that place, they were like trying on other dresses. They were dancing. They were frolicking. They loved the devil. Loved the devil. It was different hues of women. They were from different like states of dress, from like the 1800s or the 14, and then the 90s and the bohemian and all kind of different dresses. And they were loving on the devil. I mean, really loving the devil. And like one of the things I noticed was when I was made aware that was the devil, I was also made aware that I wouldn't die and that he wouldn't kill me or anything like that, and that I was not in danger. Although I was in a place with the devil and I did not want to be there. But I didn't panic or I didn't get scared or anything. It made me start paying more attention to the women who were there. And so I remember immediately finding out that was the devil and then immediately paying attention to who was there, what the women were doing. That's what it made me do to find out that was the devil. Okay, so that was my dream. That's all I wanted to say on this particular video was I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about what happened in the dream and what I was feeling because I was thinking about this dream earlier today and I was like, I should talk about this. So I did. I talked about it. Um, at the moment, I am in the mall. This is the first time I've been to this mall. Um, and I don't know, maybe I'm about to leave, I guess. I just kind of sat down and I had something to eat. And so I'm going to do some sacred text, I guess. I might get back on so that I can discuss some sacred texts because I had another discussion about sacred text today, and I was wondering the whole time, like, why do people ignore that it says Elohim? Can some of you Christians tell me why do y'all ignore that Elohim means gods and not God? Why is it that I can say that to you and you could completely ignore that most of the text says Elohim and doesn't say gods? Why is that? Why do Christians do that? I feel like it's a subduing by witchcraft that Christians completely ignore the word Elohim um, is plural gods. Because I'm talking about even people who know about the word in Hebrew, because I interpret the text directly from Hebrew. So to know that that word says Elohim and not gods, I mean, that word said gods and not God. And then to know that there are Christians who know that and ignore it, and to know that every pastor is ignoring it, says something to me. It also tells me that most of those pastors, um, especially the mega churches, are doing Satanism. I mean, I know all the pastors in mega churches are doing Satanism, but we all know that anyway. Um, I mean, most people who know about witchcraft knows that anyway. I think. But anyway, not but anyway, but I just wanted to talk about my dream. I wanted to talk about my dream today. And then I'll probably be discussing a dream if I think about discussing it. I know what it means. I know what the dream says because I read dreams, but it has something to do with my situation. It has something to do with the person who attacked me, literally said I did something that they forcibly um, did to me that I did not do to myself. And then they tried to convince me it was something wrong with me and that I did that to myself and I did not. And then I had to leave the opposite way that the other people who went to the devil came in. So I had to do the opposite of what they were doing to go to the devil, to leave. And then, because of who I am, I don't ever go to the devil willingly or anything like that. So it would, that's one of the reasons why, too,